What it do, what it do? It's your boy Ahmir Spruell, and you are tuning in to the Middle of the Fence podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, whether you're listening, watching, or both. As I like to say, time is the most valuable thing on this earth because we can spend it but can't make it back. So as always, thank you for your time. And today we have a very special guest, someone that I've known their whole life. That's how far back that we go. So he is a man of many, many talents, and we're going to get into it with this episode and life in general. So my guest today, my brother, Ahmir Spruell. How's it going, man?
Hello.
So thankful to have you on here, and I know you're going to provide great insight for the audience today. So let's just get right into it.
Sounds good.
Let's do it. All right. So obviously, you grew up on both sides of the fence, like myself, yet your experiences were different and unique to your own journey. Mm-hmm. What would you say were the biggest obstacles you had to overcome while growing up?
Let me think about this, because as far as obstacles go, like, I'm not the type of person that, dwells on things too much. I try to figure out things in the moment and then try to get through it. The obstacles that I feel like I faced had a lot to do with identity and, trying to figure out who I was, especially like as a kid. You have a bunch of people telling you who you are and who you should be. And I feel like I had to really fight for my own place in the world and whatnot. So I feel like, being a creative person to help me like find that, I feel like through the art that I make, because I'm an artist, guys. I paint and I draw and stuff like that.
He's really nice with it, by the way. Really nice with it.
Thank you. Yeah, it helped me like find my voice more and kind of just figure out, who I am. Absolutely.
And you mentioned that art was a way that helped you find your voice. Mm-hmm. Was there like a certain age where you really started to notice that? Where like
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
And this is something that our mom actually talks about a lot too. There was this. I was 5 years old, I remember, and I drew a picture of Simba on construction paper, and I remember I drew it, and I thought nothing of it. I was just drawing, It was just a normal day for me. I'm like 5 years old, like chilling, like, let me draw this little picture. I drew it, and when I showed it to our mom, seeing her reaction to it really resonated with me, and she just was amazed that I had done something that well at that age,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it stuck with me so much because it's a feeling that I try to emulate with every piece of work that I make. I want people to react that way. I want them to be like, wow, like this is so amazing. And because art was something that was always so natural to me, it was so intrinsic to me.
Right.
It wasn't hard to like keep recreating that feeling with people.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a moment that I feel like will always stick with me because I always love when people give me those types of reactions.
Yeah, and I just remember those early days as well with you, where I do remember that Simba drawing as well because I was 7. And then, it expanded over time when you drew the Wiz Khalifa in pencil on like that giant poster board.
It was like a piece of like...
It was like a 24 by 36 or something.
Right. But it was like a poster board that you used for like a project or something.
Yeah, for like a school project. And the moment of creativity, guys, that like made me realize that like, and not just because he's my brother, but the creative just mind that you had was when you were like, I think you were like 13 or 14, maybe even younger, and you cut out a symmetrical skull in the back of a T-shirt using just scissors. You literally said, I want to add a skull to this, and this was during the swag days circa like 2012.
Urban Outfitters was really popular.
Yeah, Urban Outfitters was going crazy and all that. And one thing that we've mentioned on previous episodes on Middle of the Fence is the importance of finding your purpose regardless of what side of the fence that you grew up on. And art is something that was just natural and you could tell from a young age that was your calling in a way, versus where a lot of other people have had to find it later in life or go through trials and errors. And are you doing anything like in particular to continue pursuing the passion of the arts
Absolutely.
and creativity?
Yes. So 2 things I want to touch on to answer your
Sure.
question. So with the shirt that you brought up where I cut out the skull on the back, I remember I had done that because I was a Tumblr kid, as some kids were, right? And I was really into like the pictures that I would see and whatnot, and there would always be pictures of people wearing those kinds of shirts. And when I looked at buying one, maybe I saw that it was on Urban Outfitters and I think maybe American Apparel, and it was so expensive. And I'm like, I'm a kid, like I can't buy this. So I was like, let me just, make it myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that really came from, I guess, growing up on the tough terrain side, was not having a lot of access to things sometimes. Like, obviously, we had access to things because of school.
Yeah.
But like once I got home, it was different. Like we were back in that world. So I didn't have all of these like art materials to make all these things. So I would be, going around the house, finding random things, cutting stuff, finding random crayons that I could find, different pencils and stuff, just so I can create things. And I feel like that resourcefulness came from that. As far as, continuing that passion and whatnot, there was a long time where art wasn't on the forefront for me. It was always something that I just looked at as a hobby. And, for a while I was just focused on, creating a career for myself. And I was working in the pharmaceutical industry. And, I was moving on up, making those, important relationships to get there. And then one year when I lost my job, I had to really rethink everything. And throughout that whole time, I was still creating, obviously, but it wasn't something that was super important, like I was saying.
Because at that point it was surviving.
Right.
Literally, yeah.
Right. And, I got to a point where, I feel like the universe just kept pointing me towards creating and making that my focus. And that same year that I had lost my job, I, ended up applying to school again. Well, actually, no, it was this year that I did that. Spring of 2025, I applied to school again, and, I decided to pursue art and take it serious and actually like learn from people that are doing it instead of just teaching myself, because everything
was just
prior
raw
to that,
talent and
self-taught.
Just making do with whatever you could get your hands on, like resource wise and things like that.
And being in that space now, like I'm just it's opened my eyes to a world that I never thought was possible in a way. Like I always thought to myself, like, oh my god, like how could I get there? But now that I'm in it, it feels something that's more tangible. And, working with materials that I've never had before and things that are expensive now, I'm like, okay, like I know how to use this, which is pretty cool. So it just, it gives me like motivation to just keep going and to like finish my degree and, get that job in the art field that I really hope to have one day.
Definitely. And you definitely will.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And art tends to go hand in hand with fashion. And for those watching, obviously, my brother is dressed very, very dapper today, looking like straight out of an ad of a Polo advertisement today. And to switch gears, right? You're someone who's open with your sexuality. And
I try to be.
Yeah. And obviously that presents its own set of challenges.
Right.
And would you mind sharing some of the challenges you faced with that, and then the stigmas that came about from Black and Hispanic cultures with that, just because of being Black and Argentinian as well? And another layer, because I was just curious if it was more accepted in any way on like if it was accepted more on the tough terrain versus Affluent Acres side. So multi-layer there, but I want you to
absolutely
take it from there.
Definitely like a big question to tackle, because although I am a very open person, I am private as well, if that makes sense. I can be open and private at the same time. So growing up, my sexuality was something that I feel like I really, really struggled with. because growing up we went to private Catholic school, and growing up with like 2 different cultures, it was a lot to take in, you know, especially when you're a kid and you don't know yourself that well yet.
Right.
And you have a bunch of people telling you who you are. That's kind of, I think I said that in the beginning too.
Right.
And that's something that people would always tell me, like, you're this, you're this, you're this. And, you know, I'm like, am I? Like, I don't see myself like that, you know?
Yeah.
And not that it's a bad thing at all, you know? But it's like a lot of people would associate me with being gay or, you know, whatever by, like, first meeting me. Yeah. And I'm just like, but I'm so much more than that. Like, I'm so much more than, like, what I like, you know? And so for a while, I really struggled with it, and it really like played down on my confidence. And you know me, like you're very confident. I'm a confident
and we're
person.
Gonna touch on that in a later question. Just letting you guys know now. Of course.
I'm a confident person, and that's something that really like just I struggled with it, and I had to get to a point where I had to like love and accept myself so much before anyone else did, because if I don't have that for myself, then I can't expect someone else to give that to me, you know?
Right.
So, and a lot of it had to do with, like, you know, growing up and a lot of, like, the microaggressions that I've heard, you know, from, like, either side of our families. Because, you know, I know, like, people that have watched previous episodes, they know that we're mixed Black and Argentinian.
Right.
And so... Granted, mom's side is very, you know, open and very foreign, you know, with their ideologies and the way that they do things, which is pretty cool, you know. So they have been open to some degree, obviously, way more open than obviously dad's side.
Right.
But, you know, I would still hear microaggressions, you know, from like grandpa and stuff like that about maybe stuff I'd wear or like, you know, stuff I'd say sometimes. And with reason, I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it just definitely made me think, like, oh, like, what if they don't accept me, whatever. And then, you know, on dad's side, though, it definitely was way different. I would say that in the Black community, you know, sexuality is almost taboo sometimes, especially if there's that layer of religion on top of it all. They kind of almost use it to, like, weaponize, like, it against someone in a way. And I'm only speaking from my experience. Obviously, this isn't like this way for everybody, but like I'm speaking from my experience. That's just how it was.
Of course.
And you know, I never felt really comfortable being open with that side, just because of like the extra layer of microaggression that I would receive, and having like our grandmother at like a random barbecue being like, "Oh, where's your girlfriend?"
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to say this. Okay, just like you mentioned, right? We would have our grandmother on that side of the family always asking you do you have a girlfriend? They never asked me. And
mind you, this man never brought a girl home ever. If anything, it was me bringing girls home, because I always had so many girlfriends, and like girls who were friends. Obviously, I had a girlfriend maybe like 1 or 2 times, but yeah, and like they never would ask him, and it was so clear like why they were asking. You know, they wanted to embarrass me. You know, and it's like, imagine being a kid and having that feeling from a family member. Like, it just was very, very strange, honestly. And I feel like growing up, you know, being mixed race, being in both worlds, you know, there was always this sense of duality. You know, having two things existing at the same time. And, you know, when you are in that like type of space, like people are already trying to figure you out. So having that added layer of, I keep saying layer, but there's a lot of layers to this stuff, right?
There is.
Right. Having that layer of sexuality to deal with too was difficult, you know, because it's just something that people don't always accept, and it's something you always have to have in the back of your mind, like, oh, like somebody might not like you because of this, and just how someone in the same breath might not like you because you're Black or because you're Latino, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or because of where you come from.
And they start to treat you differently.
And granted, like, I am lucky to say that, like, I haven't dealt with like too many like I guess, obviously I've dealt with microaggressions and things like that, but I've never dealt with like somebody being like blatant, like, oh, like, don't talk to me, you know what I mean? But I have, you know, dealt with people like getting the vibe that maybe they're uncomfortable and something like that after I tell them, and it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make anyone believe something or do something that I believe in. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, you do you, I do me, and that's how I've always been. So yeah, I feel like, does that answer your question?
No, yeah, definitely. And also too, I just wanted to add that because we've been living together as well the last couple of years, I've been a lot more educated about, that world just in general. And I'm really grateful for that, because I feel like I would have been a lot more ignorant, because I'm the prototypical, dude that watches sports, jock kind of guy,
Right.
But, just learning more about it as far as your experiences, being around your friends in general, even us chilling on a Friday night watching RuPaul's Drag Race together.
Those are good times.
Yeah. It really allowed me to open my mind and not, because that's a topic that, although it is 2025 and, there's multiple sexualities and genders and all this other stuff, and I'm not going to go off on that tangent right now. A lot of people do have preconceived notions towards it, and a lot of it does stem from their faith or, what people have told them versus actually educating yourself and just talking to people, and that kind of goes back to the central message of this, is that, like, again, no matter what side of the fence you're on, what your sexual orientation is, religion, race, we're all more alike than we think. And if we just spent the time to just have more conversations together and get a better understanding, then, there'd be a lot less preconceived notions and
100%.
Judgment, and, give people the opportunity to feel safe and
100%.
and feel heard.
100%.
And so you mentioned that was a layer, and the obvious layer from growing up on both sides is race as well.
Right.
And even though we're Black and Argentinian, we recognize you're Black, bro. Like, we are Black men in this country, and we've all had a moment of being reminded of that. Right. And I touched on a previous episode of the racism and the Dick Sporting Goods in episode 2. So please be sure to check it out if you haven't already. And obviously you were there for that.
Yeah.
And aside from that experience, have you ever experienced a moment of being reminded that you are a Black man in this country? And if so, please share the primary experience that stands out the most to you.
100%.
And how did it make you feel?
Yes. So for me, and like, I feel like people find that surprising sometimes when we say that's been our experience growing up in this microcosm of the world, like living in America. Because in a lot of the spaces that Andre and I grew up in, we were the only Black person in the room. Like, when I was around white people, they wouldn't look at me and say, oh, he's mixed or he's Latino. They would just be like, oh, yeah, he's Black, Right. So growing up in that, like, that's how I saw myself, too. Like, and I'm not, like, denouncing mom's side at all. Like,
yeah, of course.
We're proudly Argentinian. Don't get it wrong. Like,
we're proudly
Latino.
Black, proudly Argentinian. Right. Follow us on social media, and you'll see for yourself.
Yeah, wait till World Cup comes around. We're going to be here. Yeah. But, so, like, we're proudly both, but one thing that comes to mind for me is the experience I've had with cops, and you guys are probably listening to this interview or like seeing me be like, oh, he probably has a mouth on him and stuff like that. Like, I do.
To a certain extent.
To some degree, like, I can be spicy. Like, I'm a Sagittarius. I can't help it. Like,
very, very Sagittarius.
Right, but I've chilled out a lot, and I am someone who, like, doesn't really break rules. I bend rules, and I do respect authority 100%. I don't like getting in trouble. I've never been called to the principal's office. Like, I'm just not that kind of guy. Like, I hate getting in trouble, and if I mess up, like, I make sure I do right.
Right.
So the experiences I've had with cops, anytime I've gotten pulled over, like it's always been just very negative, you know, and I can tell they're pulling me over because of a certain thing. And I remember when I used to work at a retail store when I was like 19 or 20, at Short Hills Mall. And people who are from Jersey know, like, Short Hills is a very, like, affluent area.
Let's put it like this, guys. For the homes in Short Hills, they're starting off north of 1.5 million
Easily.
or around that. So
Easily.
that just very affluent acres.
Yeah, 100%.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, so I was working, and, you know, at that time, I'm young. I mean, I don't have anyone to, like, I wasn't dating anybody. I had no responsibilities other than working. I wasn't in school either. So I was like, you know what? Like, let me just work my butt off. So I'm over there working, and, you know, sometimes we do late nights because we'd break down packages and whatnot. And at the time, I was giving one of my coworkers a ride back home because he lived in Orange. No, he lived in East Orange. We were living in Orange at that time. And I remember we were leaving, and we see a bunch of cops surrounding a car when we're coming out of a parking lot. And, you know, I'm nosy, so, you know, we slowed down a little bit, and we're looking like, oh, like, did they get somebody, you know?
Which is like the natural reaction.
That's a natural reaction. Like,
yeah.
anyone, like, you know, I mean, you know, like, when we lived in Orange, you'd be on our porch sometimes looking outside, like, oh,
yeah,
what's
or
going
even
on?
when you're just driving on the highway, and you're like, why the fuck are they slowing down to see like what's going on? And then when you get closer, you start to slow down to see like
there's
what's
some
going
action
on.
I want to see. I want to be a part of it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So whatever. But anyway, I digress.
Back to the story.
Back to the story. Yeah, so we slowed down a little bit, and, you know, we tried to see if they got anybody, and, you know, nothing happened. And then as I'm pulling out, you know, I see a cop just, like, turn the corner so fast, and in the middle of an intersection goes, "Stop the car!" And I'm like, what is going on right now? You know? So, you know, I abide. I stop the car, like, off of a shoulder, and they immediately, like, 2 more cop cars come out. They all come out telling us to get out, telling me to get out of the car, to put the car in park, get out the car. And I'm scared, like, you know, and that was, you know, like, what? I'm trying to think. I don't know if that was like 2020 or no, it was before 2020, I think.
You were like 19.
So it was like 2017.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I just was scared because at that time, like, you know, Black people were still dying, like, from cop-related deaths. Yeah. And obviously it wasn't as, like, big of a movement at that time, but it was still happening. And if you were from where we were from, like, you knew, like, that stuff was still happening. You know what I mean? It just wasn't, like, it didn't have that big of a platform at the time. So I was terrified. I'm like, why did they stopping me for? And immediately they take me out the car, and they're questioning my coworker and I, and they're asking, you know, us questions. And the first thing I say is, "Officer, like, why'd you stop me?" You know? And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "it's nothing. You guys just fit the description of the people that we're looking for." And I'm like, "What's the description?" And he hesitated to tell me. And then another cop comes, and he's like, "Oh, it's 2 guys wearing all black." I was like, "Sir, I work here. This is my uniform. My shirt says the store name." I was like, "How can I be a suspect if I'm literally leaving my job?" And, you know, my coworker, he was like an older Black man, and, you know, he was getting upset. They were asking him to open his bag and stuff, which they had no right to do. Like, they had no warrant, no nothing. They shouldn't have even asked me to actually get out the car, you know? And I know that now, but, like, it was just a really scary moment, and they were trying to, like, pin something on us that wasn't us. And then once I, you know, explained to them that we were just leaving our job, I drop him off, they let us go. But, like, they followed us all the way from Short Hills all the way to, like, getting out of West Orange, out of, what's that road that...
Valley Road or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So that's following you guys for
like 2 to 3 towns over.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, like, that was mad weird, but that was definitely, like, an experience I'll never forget because, you know, I'm 5'7", 150 pounds now. At that time, I was like 125, 130. Like, I'm little.
Yeah.
You know, like, what am I gonna do? You know, to you that I'm so threatening. But that was something that definitely stayed with me.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that story.
Sure.
It's definitely not an easy one to share and a powerful one, but, you know, that's the type of story that we need to hear, because that's a reality.
Yeah.
That's a reality. And fortunately for me, I don't know if it's because I'm very high yellow, but I haven't had those experiences personally. Knock on wood. Most of the time it's been for speeding, like going 10 over in like a zone, and things of that nature. So, but it doesn't mean that anytime I do get pulled over, it's like I am also very scared, because it can be the tiniest infractions that can end up being the reason why you lose your life.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And again, I know that's a matter of, how people view cops differently based off like their neighborhoods, but
we're going off of our experience.
We're going off of our experience, and have to understand that, things are different, something like police officers and how they show up in an Affluent Acres type of neighborhood versus a tough terrain neighborhood. There's a difference.
100%.
Night and day difference, and the historical components that contributed to making each neighborhood how it is.
And why even police officers existed in the first place. Like when you get to the root of it, it really like starts to make sense. It's like, oh, like they were never really here to protect us for real. They were here to find people that look like us and get us out,
Yeah.
And when you think about it that way, it's just crazy. And like, even like, because our dad works in the police force as well, and when he gave us gold cards, and when I started presenting that to officers, they would look at us and be like, how do you know this person? Who are they to you? And it was just so like, it was crazy. Like, they almost couldn't believe that like we had one,
Rightfully
and
so.
I'm even scared to bring that out, because I'm just like, are they gonna believe me anyway? But it's just kind of crazy to see like the reactions that you get from it.
It really is. It really is. And obviously we just talked about some heavy stuff and things like that. So let's lighten it up a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
So, if you can't tell from this episode or don't know us personally, we are very, very close. Like very, 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 very close, to the point where when he was born, I would watch over his crib like a fucking hawk, and like nothing was going to, touch him or bother him. And to this day, and just like how you mentioned earlier about opening up about the layer of your open sexuality, right? And I remember the moment when I was a freshman in college and you called me to tell me and how nervous that you were about it, and you articulated it very well as to why. And when you told me, I was like, I knew. But it doesn't change the fact that, but the overall thing was that, I didn't treat you any differently.
Right.
I loved you even more because you took the brave step to open up about something that is not easy to open up, because if we're being frank, we keep it raw and authentic on middle of the fence. There are still people that don't have the bravery to open up about that. And you did it at, to the people closest to you around 16, 17. So that's, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think I was like a senior. I was like 17, 18.
Yeah. So, and it just made me love you even more. And like I said, if anyone fucks with you, like if anyone tries to fuck with you because of that, let me know. And I'm not a confrontational person. I'm just a chill guy. But
I'm the confrontational one.
Fire and ice over here, but like I wasn't playing that, and one thing is we're very protective of one another and our family.
100%.
And because we've spent so much time together and continue spending time together, we've had the opportunity to learn a lot from each other.
Yeah.
Despite
100%.
us having different personality types.
Yeah.
I just want to take this moment and for each of us to share one or two of the biggest lessons that we've learned from one another and how we use it today, because I feel like it's lessons that can also help the audience.
Yeah.
With what they're listening. So I can go first, or you want to go first?
I'll let you go first.
All right. I mean, you are sitting on my side, so thank you for letting me go first.
Yeah.
For those watching. So, two of the things that the biggest lessons that I've learned from you, right? One is your confidence, right? And what it truly means to be confident. And people can fake it and all that, but since you were a kid, even all the layers that you were trying to figure out about yourself, and just like how when we're all children, we're just trying to figure out where we stand in this world, trying to find like-minded people and friends and all that, your confidence is something that never wavered, and I've always admired it, and it's something that took me a lot longer to feel fully confident, but I think what I learned from you when it comes to confidence is understanding who you are, number one, so you can own it. That's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. You have to understand who you are and shed a light on things that you may make you feel uncomfortable and scared.
You have to own it.
And then that's what allows you to own it. Exactly. And then once you own it, once you own who you are, whatever people say or think doesn't fucking matter.
Doesn't.
You know? And like I said, like for me, it probably over the last year or two is probably when it like I can really say like now like I'm confident and moving forward. And learning that confidence takes different forms
100%
as well. You know, so that was definitely one of the biggest lessons.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then I would say another lesson that I learned from you that I still use today is aside from being confident and owning who you are, and this may sound funny, but the sense of fashion as well.
Yo, I'm crying. I'm fucking crying.
Not that I couldn't dress before, guys, but like definitely like, you know, because I've been single for most of my life, and you know, face card is there, but like I was dressing monochromatic, like very tough terrain. Like if I'm wearing like a red shirt, then I'm wearing some red shoes, and like my pants are probably gonna have some red in it too. You know what I mean?
And I remember when he started college, I had to be like maybe like 17, 16 years old, like, and this boy was still wearing like plaid shorts and like the matching like fitteds and stuff like that, which, you know, for a time was cool. And I remember calling him one day. I was like, "Yo, Andre," I was like, "You're in college now. We gotta switch up the wardrobe." I was like, and I was being so dead ass. Like I was like, "No, like this has to happen." He was like, "Okay," like, you know. Andre would never really fight me too much in the ideas I had, which I always appreciated you for. Like you always like listened to me, and if you did not stand for like something, you were just like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do that." But for the most part, you would indulge me a lot, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, like it started off with you just buying me outfits, or just me like, you know, you picking out outfits for me, and then it turning into the last couple of years. I'd say that I can't even put a number on it because I've lost count. Where I'm able to have my own sense of style and all that. And the reason why I
developed it,
which I developed, and the reason why I bring it up is because, you know, like when it comes to fashion, especially as a man, my friend groups, we never really spoke about fashion like that. You know,
maybe with Drake.
Yeah, maybe with Drake.
He can dress.
Friend of the show. Friend of our life. Friend of our lives. You know, yeah, like with him, yeah. You know, but outside of that, it's never really talked about, and you know, it's more so seen as like a women thing. You know, but that's something. But it goes hand in hand because that also helped with my confidence because, like, what you wear, right? Like, I'm not saying you have to be in like designer and, you know, like super dressed to the nines every single day, unless you operate like that, you know. Right. But that is the first form of communication without you saying anything.
And I always tell you that.
Yeah. You know, and it's definitely helped me when I'm in networking settings or, you know, like out with friends or just out in public, and you know, on dates from time to time. You know what I mean? So, you know, jokingly, I, you know, learned a sense of fashion from you, but that's something that bonded us even more, you know.
100%.
And then
Yeah, dude.
the confidence, you know, is just like if you weren't in my life, I'd probably still be like insecure and still trying to find my confidence.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not trying to make you cry in the club or anything like that.
Right.
But, all right, now
Cry in the pod.
yeah, I'm done. All right, it's your turn. Go ahead.
All right, my turn. I feel like one of the biggest lessons I've taken from you is, and it sounds simple, but definitely like your kindness. You know, Andre truly is. You are one of the, if not the kindest person I know in my life. You know, you move in such you move with such integrity, and you know, obviously when you move with confidence, you have to be integral as well.
Right.
But you did it in such a way that I feel like I had never seen from a person before. And, you know, earlier we were talking about how, like, when I was younger, I was such a hothead. I would be so angry at things sometimes that Andre would be the person to be like, relax. It's not that serious, you know? You can let it go, you know? And you really taught me, like, not to hold on to things, you know? Even though I'm a person that doesn't dwell on things anyway, like, when something makes me mad, I get pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, seeing the way you connect with people through your kindness and the way that people love you because of it, like, it was always something that was so admirable, you know? And I feel like when you were younger, it was something you never, I don't think, even realized, you know? That's why when you would come to me and talk to me about, like, some confidence issues that you've had, it was almost something that I didn't understand at first. 'Cause I'm like, my Andre, like, you're feeling this way, you know, because it's like the love you get from people would be so loud, you know, and I was like, I just wanted you to see what I saw, you know, so that's definitely something that I've learned from you.
Thank you.
And, you know, you mentioned us living together, and, you know, it's crazy, like, growing with someone your whole life, you think you know them,
yeah.
but bro, when you live with somebody, yo, that is really like how you get to know somebody. Like where it's just you guys and you're responsible for everything, just you and that person.
100%.
And through that, I was able to learn a lot from you. And I feel like one thing that I, you know, always admired through that was how much of a provider you are. You know, like when they have that textbook definition of like a man who takes care of things, like that's really you. Like you lift the heavy things, you kill a spider when I need it to be killed. When we needed to kill a mouse, we did it together. You know what I mean? Like you do a lot of things that, you know, I feel like people would want a man to do, you know? And I know that like when I end up in a relationship and stuff like that too, like I'm gonna take that with me. You know what I mean? Like, cause I can be dainty, but I also could, you know.
Yeah, come on.
You know, I can do it. You know, when push comes to shove, I can show up. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And, like that provider aspect is something that I feel like we've seen in different forms in our family. Never from like our own father. I mean, not to like talk shit, but like just being real. So like, having that from you definitely made me feel like really good because I always know like, man, I got my brother, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I'll be fine. I got Andre. So those are definitely two things that I always take away from you. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Sure. Sure.
And yeah, we don't want to bore you guys, but we can go on and on about the things that we've learned from each other and that we're grateful about. Right. So let's switch gears here. So the podcast is all about bridging the gap, obviously, between the tough terrain and Affluent Acres side. In your opinion, what's one practical way people from each side of the fence can better understand and learn from each other?
Absolutely. Just definitely, the first thing that comes to mind for me is just educating yourself. You know, we're definitely in a day and age now where there's certain rhetoric and things that are used to divide people, and it all comes from a place of people not being informed, or they're ill-informed about a certain subject or a certain topic. And I'm so grateful to have grown up the way we did because we were
100%.
able to see all sides, and also to just the parenting style that we've received from our mother. Like, our mom was a young mom, and she was still growing up as we were growing up, and she didn't just stop living her life because she was a mom, and she growing up, she had parties and stuff like that, and we'd always be like exposed to all different kinds of people, different sexual orientations, different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, different anything, So I feel like we were always taught to be very tolerant and accepting of everybody, and if it's something that you're not exposed to, then obviously you're going to have these preconceived notions and believe them, and it's just, it really does you a disservice because you can learn so much from another person and where they come from. And that's really the biggest thing. And you get that through putting yourself out there and trying new things, traveling. I know some of your guests prior, because I watch your episodes.
Yeah.
They talk about how when they travel and when they go different places, they're able to see things. But it's like, you don't have to go so far to see something new, Volunteer at a local food kitchen, hang out with that, invite yourself to that one Indian friend's, Diwali, like, celebration, like, make sure that you show up so that you can, like, take those experiences in, and, you can get a lot from that. But definitely putting yourself out there, involving yourself in different spaces, no matter how different or foreign they are to you, and educating yourself, knowledge is power. That's
Right.
something that I truly, truly, truly believe. And if you, know or have an idea of where you come from and where other people come from, there's nothing that can stop you.
You put it so well that there's literally nothing else that I can add to that.
Thank you.
Definitely. I will say that the education part is something that is going to continue being lessened or taken away because there's already school districts that are taking away censorship and Black history and, and things of that nature. And then with the rise of AI, that's going to lead to people being so dependent on it that, they're just going to take things at face value.
100%.
And not be able to think for themselves or have the urge to be like, oh, you know what?
Question things.
Yeah, like question things. And guys, it's okay to question things, and like not just take everything like as is. Even for example, right? Just like you mentioned, like going and experiencing different cultures and way of living and things like that. But you have to keep in mind, we spend so much time on social media. So your algorithm is going to feed you certain things and regurgitate it over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're using as like your source of like, this is what's true, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, get out in the world, talk to people, interact, and have, real conversations and learn, because that is the only truest and most purest way to bridge the tough terrain in Affluent Acres side.
And a practical thing that I want to add to that I feel like is something that is not talked about is learning what a credible source is. Right.
That's that Catholic school education coming
I
through.
was just about to say that, because I remember like spending time learning about what a credible source is online, no matter what the media is, whether it's like through technology or through like print, there's ways to verify if something is true or not. And I feel like, one of the worst things that could have happened to society happened, which was the pandemic, and granted, we were able to all come together over like a central issue, which was, I feel like, the good part about it. But the bad part about it was that there was just a lot of people just talking.
Right.
People were getting on a mic and just saying random things without fact checking and whatnot. And an opinion is nothing without factual information to back it up.
Right.
Like, back then, people would, tell you that you're wrong, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm wrong, let me shut up. now people are just loud and raw, and they'll be like, okay, I feel this way because, this is just my opinion, you know? And that's just wrong. That's just wrong, you know? Like, when there's statistical information and data and facts that, counter what you're saying, then obviously what you're saying is wrong. There is wrong and right at the end of the day. Right. And I feel like that's why I appreciate your podcast so much, because you do include so much data. And like the episodes, especially when you talk by yourself, you'll include data about different studies that, were conducted and whatnot. And I just think that's the best way to go about it. When you start questioning people with, MDs, PhDs, and people that have studied a specific topic for an extended period of time, that's a problem. We should not let it go that far. Yeah,
agreed. And as we begin to wrap things up here, how can listeners connect with you or follow your journeys? This is the time for you to shout out any, pages and social media platforms. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
So I am an artist, like I said. My handle on Instagram for my art page is @AhmirAgain. You can
spell that for them, for the people listening?
AhmirAgain all together. That's where I post a lot of the work that I, do, and I will be posting soon again on a new series that I'll actually be working on, and hopefully it's going to be in a gallery. So
we're manifesting it. It's going to be in a
gallery. It's going to be in a gallery, so stay tuned for that. But yes, you could find me on there, Ahmir Again.
Awesome. Ahmir, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and sharing the insight that you did with the audience. I know that there was a lot of takeaways and really substantive. I don't know if I'm saying
substantial.
It right. Yeah, like topics and discussions with this episode. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.
And we'll probably have to have you on for another one.
Thank you. And can I just say before you close everything out, I'm so proud of you. Like, seeing you get this far, having these ideas before, just talking in our apartment, hey, I want to do a podcast, and seeing all the planning you put in. Like, only I know how hard you've worked. And I'm so proud of you, Andre. Like, you have no idea. And thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. And yes, I hope to be on again. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you like this episode, please be sure to continue checking us out on your favorite podcast streaming platforms. And while you're on the podcast streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please be sure to comment and follow and leave us a rating so we can continue growing the Middle of the Fence family. And if you're more of a visual person, please be sure to check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell so you can be the first to be notified when the latest episode drops. And another episode and example of no matter what side of the fence you grew up on, we're all more alike than we think. My name is Ahmir Spruell. Catch you guys next time.